Good morning, everybody. The Bingo is live, and we are also on Zoom. And Mladen has joined us, which is really nice. So it is time for some morning reading before we get into our days and do everything else that we need to do. Hope everybody's been well. And I turned on one light, and it's beautiful weather outside, but it's still a little bit dark in the room. But you can still see me, I think. And Mladen says, good morning. So not just good morning, but good morning, which is really amazing. I love the energy. So good morning to everybody. And also on Bigo Live, there's a couple of people sending little hearts and different things. So it's good to see you all as well. Can't press the buttons for some reason. Not sure what's happening, but hello to you too. So the original idea was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. I have the Chinese version. Lockdown's ended, but I still don't get out much because I've been keeping myself nice and busy. And since you don't speak Chinese, we've been reading a different book, The Art of Thinking Clearly, which is a really amazing book. We're up to chapter 56, and it's called How Our Bonuses Destroy Motivation. And I think this is a really good chapter. It's going to be a lot of fun. Motivation crowding is the subheading. Let's get into it, do some reading, and improve our cognitive ability and have a great jump start on the day because we've done some reading. Okay, here we go. A few months ago, a friend from Connecticut decided to move to New York City. This man had a fabulous collection of antiques, such as exquisite old books and hand-blown Murano glass from generations ago. I knew how attached he was to them and how anxious he would be handling them over to a moving company. So the last time I visited, I offered to carry the most fragile items with me when I returned to the city. 2 weeks later, I got a thank you letter. Enclosed was a $50 bill. For years, Switzerland has been considering where to store its radioactive waste. The authorities considered a few different locations for the underground repository, including the village of Wolscheisen, in the center of the country. Economist Bruno Frey and his fellow researchers at the University of Zurich traveled there and recorded people's opinions at the community meeting. Surprisingly, 50.8% were in favor of the proposal. The positive response can be attributed to several factors: national pride, common decency, social obligation, the prospect of new jobs, and so on. The team carried out the survey a second time, but this time they mentioned a hypothetical reward of $5,000 for each town person, paid for by Swiss taxpayers, if they were to accept the proposal. What happened? Results plummeted. Only 24.6% were willing to endorse the proposal. Isn't that interesting? Another example is children's daycare centers. Daycare workers face the same issue the world over, parents collecting their children after closing time. The staff have no choice but to wait. They can hardly put the last remaining children in taxis or leave them on the curb. To discourage parental tardiness, many nurses have introduced fees for lateness. But studies show that tardiness has actually increased. Of course, they could have instituted a draconian penalty of, say, $500 for each hour, as they could have offered $1 million to each citizen of the small Swiss village. But that's beside the point. The point is small, surprisingly small. Monetary incentives crowd out other types of incentives. The three stories, I think there were only two, weren't there? The three stories illustrate one thing: money does not always motivate. Indeed, in many cases, it does just the opposite. When my friend slipped me that 50, that's the third story, the moving story, he undermined my good deed and also tainted our friendship. The offer of compensation for the nuclear repository was perceived as a bribe and cheapened the community and patriotic spirit. The nurse's introduction of late fees transformed its relationships with parents from interpersonal to monetary, and essentially legitimized their lateness, since now they were paying for the lateness and felt that they were justified to keep children there longer because they paid for it. Science has a name for this phenomenon: motivation crowding. When people do something for well-meaning non-monetary reasons, out of the goodness of their hearts, so to speak, payments throw a wrench in the works. Financial reward erodes any other motivations. Suppose you run a non-profit organization. Logically, the wages you pay me are quite modest. Nevertheless, your employees are highly motivated because they believe they are making a difference. If you suddenly introduce a bonus system, let's say a small salary increase for every donation secured, motivation crowding will commence. Having said that, though, when you see people that are collecting for charities here in Sydney on the streets, they actually receive quite a bit of money. So they're more in for the money actually, because it used to be backpackers and tourists, and they would get 70% of that donation. So if I donated $10, $7 would go to the person who requested that money, and $3 would go to the charity, from what I have heard and understand. So don't shoot the messenger if that's not correct, but from people inside the industry, that's what I heard. Your team will begin to snub tasks that bring no extra reward. That's actually an interesting one, because I started paying somebody a bonus, and I felt that I couldn't justify not paying the bonus anymore at one stage, because they were doing such an amazing job that I just kept paying them the bonus, regardless of the fact that that wasn't actually the amount that was decided upon. So who is safe from motivation crowding? This tip should help. Do you know any private bankers, insurance agents, or financial auditors who do their jobs out of passion or who believe in a higher mission? I don't. Financial incentives and performance bonuses work well in industries with generally uninspiring jobs. Industries where employees aren't proud of the products or the companies and do the work simply because they get a paycheck. On the other hand, if you create a startup, you'd be wise to enlist employee enthusiasm to promote the company's endeavor, rather than try to employ employees with juicy bonuses, which you couldn't pay anyway. One final tip for those of you who have children. Experience shows that young children are not for sale. If you want your kids to do their homework, practice musical instruments, or even mow the lawn once in a while, do not reach for your wallet. Instead, give them a fixed amount of pocket money each week. Otherwise, they will exploit the system and soon refuse to go to bed without recompense. So a very interesting chapter, a very important chapter. There are, I think, on both sides there are stories. So if you have a startup, you're not going to have the resources necessarily to be able to pay out bonuses. But if you have a look at Google when it was still in its infancy, Facebook when it was still relatively in its infancy, they were paying out quite good bonuses and they were able to get people to come in. But again, those companies were the types of companies that people didn't necessarily, well, I think some people actually work there for the mission and the reason why that company was set up. So what I think would be good to take away from this chapter is that when it comes to bonuses, when it comes to using different things to motivate people or to incentivize people or give people a reason for doing something, have a look at the structure of it. There was another chapter that we talked about snakes in India and how people were being paid to bring snakes in so that they could be killed, so that there wouldn't be as many snakes in the city. And unfortunately, it ended up leading to the fact that snakes then depleted, and they then had people who were breeding snakes so that they could keep making money off of bringing snakes in. And it didn't really achieve the goal of removing the snakes, because when the snakes were gone, no more payments, people lost their income, and they started looking for a way to beat the system and still receive a payment. So it's a very interesting phenomenon. Have a think about before you start doing anything to motivate or using psychology, and actually do a bit of research, and you can get better results than if you just do something. So that was today's chapter. Tomorrow we're up to chapter 57. If you have nothing to say, say nothing. And this one's got an interesting name. The title is Twaddle Tendency. So I'm looking forward to reading that one for you tomorrow. Have an amazing day. I'm going to go and do all the things that I need to do to work on my goals today. Hopefully you do the same so that you can have an amazing week. Use what you can from that chapter to be able to make your day more amazing as well. And I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you for joining. Oh, and very quickly, if you want to be able to watch replays of different chapters that we've done, you can go to YouTube and follow us on the Passive Cashflow Club. Love to see you there and look forward to your comments and thoughts. And you can also message me directly if you go to Instagram, business_team_ and the number 6. You will find me there. You can send me a direct message. You can see what other kinds of things I'm up to. You can see the posts that I put up there. And I would love to see you there as well. So thank you everybody for joining. I will see you all tomorrow and have an amazing day today.